up and somebody said, look, I'll give the information to you because of data protection. And I said in one instance, I'm representing that 80-odd-year-old lady. I said, who can't talk on the phone because she can't read what you're sending out to her. And you must have the same experiences, right? You must have that day-to-day experiences, because that's the kind of work a council does as well, right? And no, we're not being consulted. We're being sidelined into focus groups that mean nothing. And if you look at the consultation that's about to come up on the 11,000 new homes, there's a whole list of questions that a focus group has been asked before. And it was, I mean, standing on a Saturday outside Tesco's and asking these questions does not mean very much. So I'm suggesting that it's a wider issue. The call centre is a capitalist that's raised the question. But the question is wider than the call centre. The question is about how you consult with us per se, and how the information that we have to impart to you gets back to you. Right? Because if it dies on the vine at officer level, and they come along and say, this is what you should agree, right? Then you're not being consulted properly either.
Thank you. Stephen, third.
Let me try and answer your question a little bit more directly. What I would like to see is that at an early stage we're presented with some options. Councillors, I don't know your name, but you made the point that consultation involves asking questions. And at some point there would have been options about where the costs were going to be cut and what the different options were. And I think that they got whittled down to this one option, and then we didn't get asked about the one option. But if we're involved at an earlier stage, we do understand that times are hard. I slightly disagree with the point that you made in that we're self-financing now at the ring-fenced account, and the money we're actually putting in has gone up in real terms, although the world around us, all the funding has dropped off, but we're sitting there like a little island, and we're just, we're piling the money in. A land effect is probably not quite it, but we're contributing more year on year because the rent is going up more than the rate of inflation. But I think fundamentally we need to be asked at an early stage what our opinion is on the different options, and that really didn't happen. And I appreciate that sometimes we come up with stupid answers. We come up with the most inane things sometimes, but it's a serious issue. It's not a lightweight topic. It's how we access council services, and if everybody's asked, people who are phoning up about graffiti or complaining about the grass not being cut at a local park or whatever are less likely, I think, to want to do that at midnight. But if you have, for example, a leak in your home, is it an emergency leak or is it not an emergency leak? How do you know? The repair priorities change over the years. Very few people keep abreast of those changes. Some people will ring up about absolutely everything and think it's an emergency. Some people will think, well, I'm not really sure, I won't bother, and they may well be the people that have got a real emergency that's going to escalate and cost more and more money. People are going to ring up the call centre and not know whether their job is an emergency or not, and if it's not, we're still paying for that call to be processed. So there's a cost involved in us turning those people away. So it's not that there's an absolute saving us not dealing with these people. You've got people that are ringing up with no idea whether it's an emergency or not, but still paying for that. There's no indication about how much those things are costing. They don't seem to be quantified. We're not getting stats or analysis about that. We're not getting stats for the number of people that are ringing up, hearing the message say, we won't deal with anything unless it's an emergency, and a dropping calls. We don't know how many of those people are genuine emergencies, and people are having to put up with all sorts of horrible conditions because they haven't realised that their emergency is an emergency that we dealt with. People don't know that if their heating's not working, that's considered to be an emergency. They won't know that at different times of the year there's different priorities about their heating getting fixed. And all of those things would have been dealt with by the call centre operators, who would have explained to people and put them at ease and at rest to know that such and such a time your job's going to need to get done. But all of that has been lost, and it's detriment to service. And there was no discussion about it. It's not just a question of it's going to be over 24 hours or it's going to be partially over 24 hours. There's a lot more to it than that, and all of that is missed. And those are the things that need to come to us. Somebody needs to say, okay, you need to consider this, you need to consider this, you need to consider this. are the reports that come to area forums, general planning and tenant council. We do look at them, and we look at them and think, well, that's going to take ages, or that's not too controversial, so it can take a small amount of time. But what we had here was a presentation about encouraging people to use online services. We didn't have a presentation about they're going to smash the open times at the call centre and it's a done deal, because that would have caused that for I think when it comes to that format.
Thanks, Steve. Going to move to recommendations. Just I've been talking to Ben as he's gone along on a couple of these. A couple more to suggest. I know Martin's got one. I know Johnson's got one. So Martin, would you like to start us off?
Yes, I suppose again it's very useful to have this discussion. Of course, it happens so rarely, of course, and to hear from yourselves. It's very useful. I'll make a point going along with the Tenant Council. There you go. There you go. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I think as a major, I think what the Chair said is quite incisive. And of course, the assumption is that the online services is favoured by most people, and I suspect that is true, it happens, but we're going through a transition, and it's how we take ourselves through this transition period that I think it's what you're really focused on right now. I use online services by default now, without even thinking about it, but I realise there are still thousands of people who do not. So what support is there to enable that to happen, and out of which budget should it come out of? It's a question. But here's my question. Recommendation, sir. But thank you. This committee recommends reports which propose significant changes of council services should attend tenant council agenda setting meetings to explain in detail the consultation topic by way of a written officer's report. I think that's my recommendation, and the impact of that will be it gives you the opportunity to challenge the officers on the content of that report, particularly if it omits significant details which you think should be included. I've found that work with me at Community Council on more than a few occasions, and I suspect it will also enable you to influence what's actually presented at your meeting. It is your meeting.
Does that sound reasonable?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Steve, does that sound useful?
You used to have that.
Yeah.
Ah, used to.
Okay. Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Yes. Johnson?
I haven't quite framed the exact words of the recommendation, but it's something along the lines of a recommendation to suggest, because I look at this list and no disrespect whatsoever, but it seems like it doesn't have a coherent kind of plan to it in terms of the organisations that have been attending and the people that have been spoken to. So if we could recommend that all consultation in terms of decisions that are made have a plan with objectives of the outcome. So in terms of the bodies that they speak to are quite strategic, and so you don't have a situation where some organisations are being spoken to twice and some are not spoken only once, if that makes sense.
So to have a coherent plan.
Yeah, coherent plan and an objective at the end of it as to what the consultation. So the decision can be made. It could be an informative consultation, or it could be one where you're actually discussing the decision itself. So having an objective factor on it.
Okay, everyone happy with that?
Other than the point about, I think if it's informative, if it's telling people something that's been decided and explaining why, that's not a consultation.
Yeah, actually.
That's information.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the issue here. So all consultations should include questions.
Yeah. And have a strategy and objective. Yeah.
I think that sounds pretty easy. So all consultations should include questions.
Yeah. I'm quite. It would be good to have like a strategy as to what the moving forward, what organisations you're speaking to.
Okay. I think we can agree with that.
Chair, could I just beg your indulgence? Maybe we could be asking, and maybe one of the members will pick it up, how consultation works per se, right? And how the statutory requirement to consult which is being sidelined in Southwark at the moment. So I think that's a key point.
Is it likely to be that defined anywhere?
I mean, that's
It's defined in
yeah.
the 1980 Housing Act, actually.
Yeah, 1985 Housing Act. There is a duty to consult on certain matters. What the Act doesn't do is to go as far as to set out what that consultation needs to actually be. It very much depends on the matter that is being disposed of, but there are legal guidelines.
Can I have half your paper?
So, moving on, from an earlier point, is that community conversations may not be an appropriate vehicle for consulting on issues which mostly affect tenants. Consider, is there any recommendation?
May not be.
Substitute. Yeah, no substitute. I think it could be good to still have it in inclusion, because you could have a situation where people might not have any way of having that conversation otherwise.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to get at, is that when we consult on an issue that mostly affects tenants, we think about whether or not that's the most appropriate.
Yeah.
It's quite vague, it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
If I have to do that?
Well, just to be quite clear, if I understood what else you said, 50% of call centres' work is tenant-related, and the rest is other.
It's about 50.
Yeah, that's right. Although 50 or otherwise percent. But I'm not clear on that recommendation. You know, common sense dictates if it's a specifically tenant service, then of course it has to be tenants. But in this case, I'm not sure that is applicable. Because the community conversations, I recognise, a very useful way to get people across the spectrum, tenures, into one place to discuss an issue of mutual interest. Whereas if you were attending the area 4 meeting, then you're most probably a tenant or a council leaseholder, and that's quite specific. I'm not sure I can go along with your recommendation, that's why, but it doesn't add to the process. It is the current situation, I think, isn't it?
Chair, but it's basically the starting point for any consultation process is firstly to consider who is likely to be affected.
Yeah.
And that will then form the rest of the consultation strategy.
I guess with this particular one, it's a bit of a red herring, because I guess the question that was being posed at the community conversation is totally different to what we're discussing here, because that was more around the budget, and that was totally a different question. So I guess we should almost take them in silence, because that was a different consultation, so to speak, and a more wider one. But
Let's grab that.
sensible, yeah.
Just leave that one out.
Can
I'm going to move on because we're moving along. I'm going to change that one slightly to come back to somewhere else. That Southwark consider how clear proposals are and place emphasis on a significant point. So if it sounded like this was quite a general consultation, and I think it would it be reasonable to assume in this circumstance that the call centre point specifically would have been the controversial bit, or one of the controversial bits, and that therefore the team perhaps think about the emphasis of presentations when there's something controversial in them.
What's the point of the make, Chair? And it was said earlier on, clearly the consultation around my subject was a valid consultation. Yeah. But the political side, in other words, our side, it discussed the consequences of pursuing and supporting this particular item. And I'm not sure clearly the officers didn't feel equipped to answer those questions. It's really for cabinet members or others to answer those side questions. Well, if you do this, this is the likely consequence, and this is the context which we're operating within.
Yeah, I think to say that's likely to be more of a political decision. I think that's reasonable. I think a lot of this, bearing in mind we talked here about tenant council being potentially at an early stage, that results of this anyway, because they will feed in and all this will come back. So I think, so I'm going to go on to two that are going to make me incredibly unpopular. One is that councillors are asked to attend area forums and where relevant tenant council.
Could you make it clear though, because as I say, we've got the potential of having 9 councillors coming down. Just one round.
Yeah.
It's got to be relevant.
Yeah.
So if
And part of that though is, for example, and I have said to our area forum regularly, like I think 3 of the last 4 have been sent out as council assemblies, which we are obliged to attend.
Yeah.
So either, you know, we missed something we're absolutely like supposed to be at, or but I also think it's a very convenient way of making sure we're not there as well. Putting it on
we don't have
highlights
any.
a big key part of the problem. It used to be that all the area forums and the tenants' council's meeting programme was keyed into the council diary, right? And so there was no clash,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's something that needs to change. We need to go back to that because it's as important to you to attend your area forums as it is for us. Right?
Let that be the recommendation.
And,
I think
Let that be the
then
recommendation.
we'll recommend it goes back into the diary.
Now,
Yeah.
because the agenda setting process is supposed to check everything. What we don't miss is your group meeting, because that's kind of off the calendar a little bit, but so the individual parts of group meetings don't get considered. There's often clashes with those, but all of the council meetings, Scrutiny, all the things are all supposed to be checked at the start of the year before homeowner council and tenant council agenda planning and meetings are set. And then once they've been set, the area forums are all supposed to be set, and they're all supposed to ensure that they don't clash either. So that is the practice at the moment, but it hasn't worked well for a few years.
And there can be some small clashes like the West Bermondsey forum tonight.
Yeah.
Obviously, not all of the companies involved.
Yeah, so from our side, an acknowledgement that sometimes we've been put in impossible situations, which means that I've almost never been able to attend my own area forum, but that the council will put it in the diary and make more effort to make sure that important meetings don't clash with each other. And finally, my final one is that the strategic director of housing attends tenant council. I'm not going to be very popular with Jerry, sorry Jerry if you're watching. But I think it's a request that we will at least put in and see where we get. So.
popularity may fly, I think.
Any last points, because we're well over time on this.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
There's a major restructuring coming to Southwark. It'd be very interesting to know how the consultant what those changes are making and how it will impact on the service delivery for us.
Yeah, and in fact it's something we're going to touch on any other business tonight. I know staff are being consulted at the moment. Important on everything.
On your last recommendation, Chair, maybe we said the director and or the cabinet member.
Who does go.
Who does go. Well, just if it's fair.
Don't upset for a lot of it.
Who does. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Richard. And we'll drop you a line with some of those points. Just as recommendations,